Yeah, man, good to see you. You know,
Oh, same here, man.
yes, sir. So I just thought about it, and you're like the first, like the main person that I know, that came up, and um, I was just thinking about like servant leadership and everything. So I thought of you. I said, who better to have as an example that's really lived this life too, and you continue to serve. Like it's not like you served as a police officer. So, and then I guess we could just get right into it. So
all right.
for me, I thought about this podcast and I was like, thinking about being a servant, what servant leadership looks like. I know the greatest servant of all time, the greatest leader of all time in my eyes, and I'm sure in yours as well, is Jesus.
Yes.
And he gave that example that of what servant leadership looks like. Him being a leader, him being a fearless, lion, and then being as calm as and as empathetic as a lamb, or could be at the same time. Just and that way nobody could have an excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like for me, for you, looking at you, there's no excuse. You're a brother. You came up. Your dad, God rest his soul, had some. Came up in an environment that he was exposed to, like a lot of us. Made
Yes.
some decisions. Made some decisions that work in his favor, and I know others probably didn't. But it's not that it's not things to be ashamed of. We just grew up in different situations and we make different choices. But your dad, I know, was a great man. He was definitely a leader, and had a reputation in many ways. But I know that you wanted to do something different. But I'm sure you took things from your dad, right?
Yeah, sure did. Yep.
Yeah, as far as being a leader. So for me, what I saw with you, growing up, is as much as of a knucklehead that I was and doing the wrong thing, and it was great and it was greatly appreciated to see somebody like you that was
Yeah.
that looked like me and is from my neighborhood and was family and it was in the neighborhood, always trying to help people, not just trying to arrest people.
True.
Though it was your job.
Yeah, I just try to take the I try to take the moment for what it was. It's a regardless of what anybody's past is, you have a conversation and you make that conversation the subject, and you don't think about anything else,
No.
whether it's someone's past or whatever. You just communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And because situations, good, bad, and ugly, happen at a moment's notice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I take a conversation as a good thing, and let's communicate, let's talk about it, whatever it is. It could be
Yeah.
a situation where you get into a beef. All right, let's talk about this, let's try to straighten this out,
Yeah.
and just communicate, and that's all I try to do, is just live in the moment, not live in the past, not live in the future, just live in that moment and let someone speak and tell them, and because when you didn't listen to anybody, that all that does is just make things worse. And and then when it makes things worse and you think about it later on, you said this situation didn't have to happen like this. I should have listened 5 more minutes. I should have let them speak, and maybe I would have understand where they were coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And too many people come on the job and it's like us against them, and you gotta get away from that. And if you do, things will be a little bit more easier. And I'm not saying the job's easy. I'm just saying that it try a little honey sometimes and it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's awesome. I mean, I noticed that again, just for like the separation. Oh, excuse me 1 second, child. I just want to grab a
Yep.
pen. I love taking notes. I need to take notes when I'm around people like you.
I hear it.
But so like you mentioned communication, and communication is definitely key. And I know every situation is unique in itself. And it's funny because I was talking to my brother about this the other day, and we were talking about, these dealing with some things right now. But we were talking about communication and with police officers, and I, for one, pay you guys more. For two, also pay for you guys to get some kind of schooling, maybe even a minimal degree on psychology.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, if you don't care, you're not going to try to think that out. You're going to think aggressively. You're going to think about the authoritative presence that you have, and you're immediately going to go into an arrest mode or a mode or an angry mode, depending on what your day was like, especially at home, which is unfortunate. But when you understand psychology, for one, you can't bring your problems to work. For two, you have no idea what that individual is dealing with. They could have just lost somebody in their life. They could have a serious, tragedy or something that just happened, and now they're dealing with something else, which could be something as simple as getting pulled over for speeding.
Yeah.
But they blew it out of proportion because they were already going through something, and then you came at them aggressively instead of saying, "Wait, let me look at this moment as an individual situation or a unique situation." And that's what I always appreciated and respected, even though, like, you never knew what I had in my pockets. You also could not assume, and that's what sometimes some officers in certain situations will assume that somebody has something in their pockets, come to find out they had nothing. Like, you knew Joshua probably doesn't have a job, but you also couldn't guarantee, like, I couldn't see, you're not Superman, you can't see what's in it, so it's kind of like, hey, how you doing? The respect is there. There's no conflict. There's no reason. I'm not doing anything blatantly in the open, as you always, would let us know, like, hey, just keep it in the bag, keep it in the brown paper bag, keep it out of my eyesight. Respect me when I'm going through the neighborhood.
Sometimes situations when you, as I say, go fishing. You go fishing and assume that something's going on, it's going to get you in trouble.
Yes.
What you should do is use your professional instincts and gradually work through a situation where you don't have to fish. You don't have to. You just basically use your professionalism. If I'm rolling around, coming on a scene or in the neighborhood, and you just watch and you see, well, all right, so and so's hanging out. All right, they're just hanging out. Leave it like that, Look, scan, look, and then drive through and then drive off, And then later on, if you get a situation where there's a fight happening on the block, well, now it's a little different. Now you got to watch and observe, and now you got to definitely straighten out things. Yeah. And in most cases, when things are getting a little disruptive and neighbors are calling in, all right, you got to tell, all right, everyone, you got to leave, man. You got to leave. Come back tomorrow. It's another day. Come back later or whatever.
Yeah.
So, professional instinct, and anyone that's been on for a while. See, I had a little advantage because coming from the neighborhood.
Yes.
You can watch and see and things, even though there might be an age difference but the routine is the same. There's still same things. It doesn't change too much. Different spots might change, but it's still going to be, there's going to be a particular, there's just a thing you do in the neighborhood. Watch out, alert somebody. You're doing your hustle. You got to be careful. So on and so forth. It's the same game. It's just different times.
Yep.
So when I came on, I was aware of a lot of things, and and I could tap whoever's with me. If I was with someone, most of the time I was usually by myself, and I would just tap the other person and say, "There's nothing going on. Let's just go." Because I didn't want to get caught up with something unnecessarily. You don't need to create a call because you're going to get one in 20 minutes, right?
Exactly. That makes sense.
don't create something you're not gonna. I mean, you're only gonna get something in a few more minutes. So if there's nothing there, then move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned I was always curious about that too. You mentioned how you were by yourself sometimes. What
Mhm.
about what are some of the situations where you felt like, and you don't have to get into too much detail, but I was just curious, like when you have a partner with you and you're in a situation where he wants to go like the extra and you're kind of looking at it like, man, it's not that serious, and he's kind of forcing it. Have you ever, you probably have been in that
It-
situation, right? You kind of had to talk him down a little bit.
yeah, you try to talk them down and just explain your knowledge, and as
Mm-hmm.
far as you don't have to explain your knowledge about the police work because they already know, but you want to explain your knowledge of the neighborhood, who you're talking to,
Mm-hmm.
and where I could say, hey, I know this person, known them all their life since they were 10 years old. Let me talk to them. Just let me talk to them, kind of, you know, calm it down a little bit.
Yes.
And then sometimes it happens where it triggers against me, and it like, and someone may say, F you forget where you came from, and then now it's a different story. Now
Yeah.
it's like showing some disrespect, but chances are the majority of the time I can kind of just look, I know this kid's mother, father, um, or it's my nephew's friend, my brother's, you can kind of, once you say that to the person you're working with, usually what they do is give you that respect. All right,
Right.
now you handle it and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there's some situations where I come after the fact,
Mm-hmm.
and things happen, and there's not much I can do. I mean,
Yes, sir.
once somebody puts some cuffs on you, that's it. There's
Yeah.
nothing I can really do. By law, you got to take them and bring them in. And I get that, but later on, you try to help out somebody, maybe when they in court or doing something, you try to give them a break. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's hard. It was hard for me being, as I say, black and blue, right?
Yes, sir.
Black man with a blue uniform on.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, as you go on for years and years, that black and blue becomes like you're bruising, just like it says. You're taking it from all angles, inside the job, outside the job, and you're just kind of bruised up, and you're just saying, "Man, I don't know if I can take too much of this anymore."
Yeah.
And then you got to kind of recondition yourself to kind of maybe take a couple of days off and just say, "Hey, all right, I'm good now. I'm good now." Um, I It's funny that Black and Blue was going to be a book that I wrote, and then all
Oh,
of a
really?
sudden,
I'm
yeah.
looking forward to that, man.
Well, it's I don't know if I'm going to do it now because
Oh, you don't know? Oh, man.
no, because I talked to a mentor of mine, and
All right.
he had passed away. And the one thing about writing a book like that is there's a lot of things I do know, right? And there may be things that I'm talking about someone, whether it's on the job or off the job.
Mm-hmm.
And if you end up telling a story that's real deep and concerning, um, or is talking about someone that did pass away, so it can get so crazy that that person's gone, but now the family has to deal with a story that I told, right?
All right. I got
It's
it.
not fair for that kid or that wife or that
Mm-hmm.
brother or sister to be dealing with a situation um, over something that was done, maybe years ago or done by a relative. So he said, "Is it worth it? Is it worth? You're going to get a few bucks out of the book, but is it worth going through all that?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "All right." So I kind of said, "I'll leave it alone, and if I end up doing a story, I'm gonna have to do it kind of fictional and or ghostwrite it or something like that. I'm gonna have to do something like that. But
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool, too.
there's so many stories, but right now it's really don't want to go back too far or go into the job too much because at some points it was a little stressful, and I don't need to be thinking about that stuff again.
Kind of stir it back up.
Yeah.
I can see you writing the book because you do your poetry, and everything. You have that book out too, and you have creative thinking. You have a creative mind, an artistic mind, and a heart for it all too. So I think
Thank
maybe
you.
yeah, you definitely do. I could definitely see you doing that, but like that's what people do sometimes. Maybe like ghost writing or something. Something like that where they don't know it's you and you're not names in the but you're just telling a really good story. A story that somebody could really gravitate toward and really or resonate with. Really appreciate the details and everything.
Yeah, and I'm always trying to encourage someone to write a book.
Yeah.
And, whether it's someone on the job or off the job, I'm always trying to tell people write that book. And most people say I'm not a writer, and I tell them, look, you don't have to be a writer. You can be a dictator. You can put it on Audible. Just tell your story, right? And it just gets recorded, and all of a sudden you can go to something like Microsoft Word and get online, and then it press dictate and just talk every day about a story that you went through, something you went through.
Yeah.
And then when you kind of think about it, if you do a paragraph a day, by the end of the year you got 365 paragraphs. That's enough for a book if you're doing it every single day.
It is. Yeah, that makes sense too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
stacking bricks.
Yeah.
That would be great. But if you ever do, I want to be one of the first people to know and purchase the book too. I'd be more than happy to buy a stack of those and even pass them out as gifts. Let people know. Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to let me ask you this. What has what inspired you to be a police officer?
Believe it or not, I was right around when I was about 18, 19. I started thinking about and I had a few little other jobs, and I said, I don't know if I want to do this all my life, unloading trucks, working in factories, I said, I don't know, I got to do a career. I got to do something. So, the first thing I thought about was the Army. And so I ended up seeing a recruiter and talking to him and basically just, thinking about it, and it was weird. I'm right on Spring Street downtown, and I'm unloading a truck from the store. And one of the police officers that I know comes by, and it was Anthony Lesser, and he comes by and he's talking to me. He said, "Hey, you should go take the police exam, the cadet exam, work inside, and maybe you can become a cop like me." And I'm like, and that was it. I started thinking about it and dwelling on it, and then the rest was history.
There it is.
A few months later, and then 6 months after that, I was getting ready to go in the academy. 6 months to a year after that, yeah. And then that was it, and it was just timing, God's timing,
Absolutely.
I'm just unloading a truck, and then just a neighborhood dude comes by that happens to be a police officer and starts talking to me about it. So
it's amazing how the Lord works. It's not always a person. It could be a stranger, right? It's not always a person you're close with or that you even get along with. It could even be a person that you didn't get along with, or you had a little bit of a conflict with, that ends up planting a seed in you, and like God's about to be that messenger to let you know. Because if that wouldn't have happened, who knows where you would be? You could be doing something completely different. What could have went to college or something like that, or just chose a different path. That's great, man.
I was probably around 48. I was about 48 hours. Let me see, 72 hours probably from going to Boston to get sworn in because I did the paperwork and everything with the recruiter. And that Monday morning, I was gonna go up to Boston and get sworn in. And then the craziest thing is that I wasn't really gonna tell anybody. I was just gonna get sworn in and then go boom.
And then show up, yeah.
And then the craziest thing, I'm playing ball, some basketball. I come into my grandmother's house. I was on a Friday, Thursday or Friday, and she tells me, "Hey, the police department called you." I said, "Well, yeah." She said, "Yeah, this captain wants you to call him." So I called, and he asked me if I was still serious about doing the job. I said, "Yeah," and that was it. But there's no doubt about it. On Monday morning, I would have been in Boston and probably getting ready for the next boot camp. And who knows? I would have been down south. I would have married a Baptist priest's daughter, and
yeah, right.
She'd have been in the church.
I would have, yeah. I would have possibly bumped into you. You know, you never know. Small world, yeah. I know. I mean, speaking of bumping into people, I bump into people here and there from back home, like Boston and everything. And it's funny, but small world.
Yeah, it is.
That's the great thing about the military, traveling and things like that. But the blessing that you had in becoming a police officer, you were able to, work with a lot of locals.
Yeah.
A lot of family members, and you can't save the world, right?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You make a difference and an impact in one life at a time, which you've done to various. I mean, many lives. Which is should be the motive.
Yeah.
Police officer, instead of just going for the arrest again. If somebody does something, they do it. They deserve it. It happens. But other than that,
yeah.
I was gonna say thank you for sharing that too.
Well, you're welcome.
What has been the most challenging part that you could kind of think of as being a police officer?
I think the most challenging thing about police work is, believe it or not, is the people you work with, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're trained and geared up to work on the streets and handle calls. That stuff gets easy, even if it's the most extreme call or situation. You know what? We deal with it. We get used to it. Not used to it, but we know how to handle it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the stress of within the place, within the facility, the department, that's where a lot of the stress comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is your coworkers, and there's not. You just got to deal with it, and everything that I've dealt with on the street, whether it was a situation where, there was a couple of murders I was involved in, those situations, are heavy on my mind because someone died, someone was killed. But the stress level of on the job and within the department to me was the hardest thing, because I'm really trying to adapt to different situations. You have people that are maybe of rank that are higher than you, have big ego and kind of have that power struggle and all that. So you just got to deal with it, and let's just face it, the police department's a little world, and everything that you see in the world, from good people, bad people, from racism to religious conflicts, everything. It's all within that department. Every single thing that you think in the world that you see on the news is right there within.
Yes.
So, it's difficult. There's an old saying: "Don't talk politics and religion at work."
I always heard that.
And you shouldn't. You shouldn't. Whether even amongst family, you shouldn't even talk it. It's never going to go the right way. It's always going to turn to a different direction, and but if you're all teaching each other when it comes to like whether it's a Bible study or something as a family, all right, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes with friends, and there's so much different conflicts with politics and religion, so but on the job is the most difficult thing, and that was the most stressful, and was usually the reason why I was unhealthy at some point in my career. Whether it was blood pressure, whether it was gaining weight, it's all to do to amongst the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
It was never a situation on the street, because when I got on the street, I was smiling day in and day out. I was happy being on the job.
Yeah.
And but so that was the most difficult thing for me.
Most difficult. Excuse me 1 second, Charlie. It's extra cold in here.
I get it.
How's the how's the winter been back home? Because this in Texas is a little different, as you know, where I'm in Houston now. But it's definitely it gets extra hot, but it's not it's still not a winter. It's clean, but the winter's been okay back home.
Yeah, we tend to. I mean, where we're at. Being along the coast, what happens is, I think now these past few winters we've been fortunate to the big storms that have usually been going just below us.
Mm-hmm.
Or just above us towards the Boston area.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything that we're getting is usually the wet snow or the lower temperatures, so it's kind of just flowing right by us, and it's not as extreme as when we grew up, where our Timberlands were too short to be wearing because the snow was above it,
Yeah. I know. I joke around telling people out here, I was like, I mean, even back home, the kids these days, they have no idea what it's like to shovel snow, and they have no idea what it's like to have to go to school, and you can't drive in the street. Like my stepdad, God rest his soul, dropped me off in the morning, and tires are spinning sometimes in the snow. Yep. They weren't like thoroughly plowed just yet. It was early in the morning, and plows are just starting to make it through the side streets, but they have no clue out here. They call it cold, and it's funny. It's like that, they can't wait to throw a hoodie on or a winter coat, which it doesn't really last long over here. But it's definitely an experience to go in snow.
Yeah. The funniest thing is, right, when I lived in Florida for 2 years, and the temperature would get around maybe 66, maybe 67. And I seen my friends coming out with a winter coat like you and I would wear up northeast, and I'm like, "Are you crazy?" And they're like, "It's cold," and I wow, I can't believe it. But the craziest thing is I'm kind of reverse when I do vacation and go to the warmer states. The heat is really uncomfortable to me. Like when I went to Puerto Rico, I was really uncomfortable. I wanted to stay in an AC. It was just too hot for me. And I mean, made a lot of money shoveling snow, And you didn't think about the coldness. You were making some money,
Yeah. It was definitely different. It was definitely a side hustle, I remember charging, something like $10, $15, $20 on a big driveway, and you knock out a handful of those in the morning, and then you end up, at 10, 11, 12 years old, 13 years old with, $150 or something like that in your pocket, and you go run around with like 3 of your friends and just knock out neighborhoods, knock out little small areas. It was definitely a nice little hustle.
Yeah, and then. Yeah. I remember at times we didn't even, like we said, we'll do it for some money, but sometimes we would do it and whatever they gave us, that's what we took,
Yeah.
And,
I remember that too.
Yeah, and it is what it is. But as we gotten older, and it was, all we wanted was enough for a pizza and a bottle, a
Yep.
case, whatever, there's always somebody gonna go and kind of go to the liquor store, or as we say, packy, and get our stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, packy. They have no idea what that means over here. It's funny.
No.
The slang is so different, man. I talk to a lot of different people, and I always joke with everybody because I'm the one with an accent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out here from Louisiana because of ever since Hurricane Katrina, but it's also not that far away.
True.
So people have come here and just ended up living here for different reasons. But I was joking. I'm in a circle of some of my people out here, and I'm telling them, "Hey, you guys have an accent out here." They look at me like I have an accent. I'll be the only one that sounds like I'm from back in Massachusetts.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing is watch when you come back home, right? Just for a quick visit, whatever. Now everything folks are telling you in Texas, right? You come home and people start talking to you, and you hear that Massachusetts accent, right?
Yeah.
And you say, "Wow, now I know what they're talking about," like park, and just not pronouncing your R's, and you hear it for the first time. And this was when we lived in LA and I lived in Florida, and we'd come back for the summer, and I would catch the accent that everybody would talk about, and I'm saying, "Wow, it is different." And it's kind of funny. It's really funny because your dialect starts changing. You start speaking words a little bit differently, like they do.
You do.
And so when you come home, they're saying, "Wow, we do sound kind of crazy,"
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. Yeah, absolutely. It's a big difference. What do you so like I've always saw you again, like I said, as a leader in the community, as a person. I didn't know what serving even meant. That wasn't part of my vocabulary at that time. But when I got to realize the meaning of serving and what it looks like, for other, in other people's lives that I was like looking up to, not necessarily from my neighborhood, but outside of my neighborhood, and then kind of, connecting that with you and how in your walk. But when did you start to look at like your job and take your job as a place of like coming from a servant perspective, or just thinking about stepping into putting on your uniform, and I'm telling yourself in the mirror, like, I'm not just a police officer, I'm also a leader, and I need to live by an example in that way. When did that happen?
That really started right away, only because I had a good mentor, and Captain, it was Lieutenant Guy Oliveira, and so, and we always communicated and talked, and the one thing that he talked about is there's no such thing as off duty,
Right.
You can get in trouble at home, no uniform on.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so you got to remember that, you're always going to be perceived as a police officer.
All right. That makes sense.
And until this day, I've been retired 6 years, and I'm still got people yelling, Officer Perry, Officer Perry. I still have people calling me and sending stuff in my messenger and just, asking me police questions, and I'm like, look, I've been gone a while, and
I can imagine.
And so I'm still kind of doing it a little bit, but I try to tell everybody that, the people that I came up with, they're gone just like I am, and there's a few people I know, but it's not that easy. You just can't make a call and make things, go away or ask for different things. You can't do that anymore, because as it is, I'm driving, I'm getting pulled over too, I'll get stopped, and and then they'll look, and I know you. Oh, and then I go about my business, But it's so I always wore that patch on my, whether I was on duty or off duty. I just said, look, someone's looking at me, and I don't want them to see anything, out of character or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um,
There's always somebody watching, right?
Yeah. Someone, you say no snitching, right? Well, people, if they know you're a cop, they're gonna tell on you if you're doing something stupid.
Absolutely.
And then later on, as my career goes, he said, "Hey, people would say you don't know who has a camera, who has a cell phone, who's videotaping you. Those are things that's all real,
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I didn't worry about me doing anything wrong because I usually try to do it to the best of my ability.
Yes, sir.
And if someone viewed it as wrong, I can explain my situation and why I did something a certain way. And so, but as far as serving, that was instantly only because of the people that I had above me that were really trying to school me in. Here I am coming, the late 80s into the 90s as a police officer. And these were men and women that were doing the job, 70s and 80s, at some point 60s. So how rough that was. As for one, any officer, but even more so as a minority officer trying to do the job. It was just crazy,
And I know you experienced some of that, especially in that older police station, that downtown one.
Mm-hmm.
Basement was the basement. I heard some stories about those,
Yeah. It's it's a shame that they end up knocking down that building because you don't see too many of them anymore,
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, even if they made it a museum or something, but powers to be said, nope, gotta go. And,
exactly.
and it was knocked down. So serving was something that was taught to me right away. I think I had an understanding of the job, and
nice.
And I wasn't about getting out there and locking up people and giving them cases. That just wasn't me.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
just wasn't.
Probably help people avoid a situation that didn't even go that route, and it might have. I'm sure at times, actually, I can guarantee you, at times it scared them straight. Like I had a rough night. I was out drinking. Charlie could have, definitely went this route, but he chose to go this route, and I never did that again. Whatever that was,
True.
It definitely. It's nice to have people like you around in that way, because that right there for me is a great example of serving from the front, because you're taking the initiative and you're helping somebody, and it's not that you're doing it several times. It was a situation. It was maybe a one time, and you saw that as a time to say, you know what, I'm gonna give this man or woman a break, and knowing that they're gonna go home and call it a night, and they end up doing that, and it ended up, not backfiring on you, but maybe like a brother and a police officer and a servant and a leader in the community that you earned a ton of respect because of situations like that as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Try to give whoever I could a break, as long as it didn't cause me to lose my job or anything. And I wouldn't do anything over again, like keep it just the way it was. The one thing I would change is a little bit is just trusting some of my colleagues a little bit more than I should, And then later on you find out that, they could have put me in some bad situations, only because my trust was there for them. It's like you and I talking, my boy, your fam, you're this, you're that. You know what? and it's just like that within the job, and you kind of take that person on as their word is gospel. And then later on, you find out that all the things they were doing wasn't cool,
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think back and say, man, what did I get caught up in, or what information did I give to this person that caused someone to go to jail a little, for some time, You just kind of think about that, and saying, man, I think I would have, if I had to do that part a little bit over, I would have kind of really got to know some people. I was just going based on the uniform and that they were trustworthy and this and that. And I found out that, some weren't. And then there's some friends that I have right now that after I retired, that we still keep in contact. Those are the real deal people. Those are the people that reach out to you and I mean, I left the job with more friends than enemies, so
I bet
that.
I bet. And because I know you, I can guarantee that the ones that you didn't leave off as friends, they might have an issue, but I bet you the issue is more with them than it is with you.
True.
And,
and the funniest thing is, right, I've learned, I met a lot of people, and had a lot of friends, and some friends that were related to different people on the job would tell me things about their family, and I'm like, that's your family. Why are you telling me this thing? Because you need to know.
Like, getting intimate, right? Like,
like I was a sponge, man. People seem like they wanted to talk to me, tell me things, and I'm like, hey, you're getting real deep in this, don't be telling me anything. And then I said, joking around, I said, you recording me or what? You trying to set me up. So, but yeah, I found out some stories on some people, and
I bet.
People are like, how do you know that? And I'm like, never mind, I don't know it. I'm just letting I know it.
And, absolutely, it's crazy. You can imagine. You got them those long shifts. You have time to spend. Pull over, talk to somebody out in the neighborhood. And then they just said, Charlie, because you always came off to me as a person that that was another funny thing. As I think about it, you always came off to me as like one of the fellas. Not saying I could trust them all, because
true.
Men like to gossip more than women at times. You always came off to me as one of the fellas that I could trust.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna tell this to Charlie and he's automatically gonna be like trying to use it against me, basically. So I felt like I could share a little bit more. Like, man, Charlie, I'm just going to do X, Y, Z, and it's just like, and it's like, you know what, man, just give me a little advice and then just call it a day, and might even follow up on me later on. How do you make out with that? Or I was like, I appreciate it, Charlie. It really helped me out in that situation. That's cool, man.
It's funny how people remember things, and they're telling me, hey, remember when you did this to me? And I'm like, I don't remember that, and I'm like, well, I and you remember bits and pieces, but you don't remember all of it.
Yep.
And I have to tell people, fill me in, tell me what I did, and
I forgot.
Yeah. So, but nah, it's a great it was a great job, great career, very proud of it. And I wouldn't want to do anything else. I think I was meant for that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
But I definitely wouldn't do it again.
No, you can't. Nope. That's cool, man. What is what do you feel like? What do you feel like what was the most rewarding part of the most rewarding part of you being a police officer? To sum that up,
the job security, but more so the people I met. The different assignments I had over the years and meeting different people, Until this day, I still have some friendships that are very solid, and some people I have met, some famous people,
All right.
some infamous people.
Yeah.
I've definitely that was the most rewarding thing, and because it's till this day, it's still helping me now. It's still some of the relationships I have.
Yes.
So that was the most rewarding thing.
That's great. Nice.
It's funny you say reward, right? There was someone had, I was getting different things and certificates and plaques and all that other stuff, and so someone had made a comment. Well, and I know it was directed at me, but they said, yeah, well, you're getting all these awards, but you're doing it while you're getting paid. And I would tell people that if you think that me or just a police officer doing things, like, they don't have to go to the neighborhood and chill out and hang out with people.
No.
We don't have to communicate. I don't have to put my ear to the ground, and you know what? I'm extending myself, and I always try to extend myself, and sometimes overextending myself. And that's what people seen, and especially when they have a conversation with someone else in the same uniform that just ain't gonna do nothing. And then I come around and I'm doing something a little bit differently and a little bit helpful for them. They said, "Wow, can't believe you did that. I've been asking for this to be done for years." And I'm saying, well, I'm just a different person. Not saying I'm the best, but I'm a different person, right?
Yeah.
And so the comment was that, yeah, you're getting paid, and now you got an award. I'm like, it's not like that. You're not looking at it. You're not looking at the ingredients of the award, and that's why this day, on my podcast, every year I give out an award. It's called the Sunshine Award.
All right.
And it's people that, that are trying to brighten up someone else's lives. They're doing things to others can find.
You said, I'm sorry, I mean, you said Sunshine Award?
Yes, the Really Charlie Sunshine Award. And it's just basically, giving that award to someone that,
good for you.
That's making others shine bright, and the first two awards I gave was out to Samia Walker and Lionel Walker, husband and wife. The husband got it the first year, and it just so happened that the second year I was looking for someone, and I mean, his wife was all over the place, all over the city doing things, and I'm like, that's a no-brainer right there, And then so I end up calling, the husband. I said, "Hey, this is crazy, but this year I'm giving your wife the same award I gave you last year." And he's like, "No way!" He's all excited, and
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and I still haven't picked anybody for 2023, and I got to get on that. So, yeah. So I think we should all give people their flowers while they're standing.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree 100%, and I'm glad that that's became, or not became. I mean, the term you use, flowers, but I'm glad that it is nice to see people getting awards while they're still alive and well, because unfortunately, there's times where people pass, and all of a sudden, they become famous or they become highly missed, and appreciated. Like, I'm like, man, I was putting all this work, and you could at least give me a thank you once in a while, or express a little bit of gratitude. But we get caught up in, like we like to say, busy. But sometimes busyness can also be a lot of selfishness, in my opinion.
Exactly.
You got to stop and give that gratitude every so often, and be more interested instead of interesting to the person. Every time you stop, it's all about what you have going on.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
So yeah, that's a big deal to me. And I love that. I love that sunshine over. That's cool, man. we need the sunshine, brother. You know, especially back
Yeah,
home. That
yeah,
overcast and that New England weather can really get you down. And
yeah. It does.
yeah,
People don't realize that the weather plays it plays a part in your mood.
it does. It does.
And
You know,
so
I can remember numerous summertime where we're planning a cookout or planning to go to the beach. It's supposed to be sunny out. It's supposed to be warm, and here comes those clouds, and I'm
yeah.
like, man, you know, like come on, man, just do it, you know. Curveball and a damper on my whole day.
So true.
What was I gonna say? So how about this? I know you've impacted many lives. How has that made you feel?
Um, it it feels great now. Because now, maybe especially younger generation, now that they're adults and they come up to me and talk to me, and they're family men, they're family men and women,
Mm-hmm.
raising their own children, and they're basically telling me stories, and it feels good, and even the some of the kids that come on the job later on. He said, "I'm only wearing this uniform because you did,"
Wow.
and so that's great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so no, that's a very very it's one of the highest compliments you can get when someone kind of follows your footsteps, and when you like I look at them and I say, man, that dude, that girl, they're on point, man, they're wonderful, and I'm like giving them high praise, and then later on they come back and say, I only did this because of what you did it, and I wanted to do the same thing. So
Yeah. That,
um, like I'm so proud of so many of them that are on,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't matter where they came from or what color they are. There's so many of them, and they just make me proud. I've seen a picture of my friend who's retired, and the funniest thing is his two boys are behind him, and they were both two state troopers, and but I'm looking at those kids. I remember when they were little, they were like 6 years old, and they're taller than their dad, they're bigger than their dad, and he's retiring, and he was inspirational to them,
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's just those stories you hear later on are very heartfelt.
Yeah, they gotta be. They gotta be. That's great. That's great to hear. And I'm sure I know I bumped into some people that have been in the police department and talked to them and asked them about because we know a lot of the same people and they have brought your name up and say, man, Charlie was such an inspiration to me, and
And,
it made me feel like it was a good thing to do because we had this, growing up,
mhm.
even at a younger age, I wasn't in. I mean, before I even knew what crime really was, I remember my stepdad being mishandled in a situation. But again, it was a mental health um, thing that he was dealing with at the time, and it was
Mhm.
really police officers aren't trained for
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
so they didn't know how to react, and they kind of reacted in a way that they would have in the same way if it was a situation where the guy was being violent and aggressive because he just felt like it.
true.
So that is,
Yeah.
I looked at police. I was upset at police officers from that point on, and I was like, I
Mhm.
was single digits. I don't even remember how old I was. It must have been like 6, 7, 8, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up disliking them because they were at the times my dad was around, and they had to take them away, and so there wasn't a good feeling.
No,
As far as me, and, and seeing them, but later on, as things, as you grow up, you have mentors that came into the neighborhoods and taking us to go see the Red Sox, and you know, you kind of, all right, they are human, you know, they are good people, you know, and so that's when things started changing for me, you know, as far as how I perceive them, because it wasn't good growing up, you know.
No, different times for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, people see a lot of things now, but I know some of it can be heightened at times, you know, and again, it depends, you know, if they're coming from where you came from, if a police officer or somebody, some kind of authoritative figures coming into their position like you, thinking of, you know, how can I help this situation? You know, when something happens, okay, let's settle down, calm down. How can we help this situation and not make it worse?
True.
Or it's that serious, you know. But it's great to you know, to hear it and to see it and to know it and actually witness it. Is really what I really appreciated and grateful to have you in the community at that time.
Thank you. Means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this question, and I know your wife, so I was curious about did she ever try to talk you out of being a police officer?
No, because I was already one when I met her, you know.
All right.
Started seeing her. I think with her she may have been hesitant to, is this something I want to do? Do I want to date a police officer? You know.
Yes.
You know, and then things were different, you know, because believe it or not, my wife was my grandmother's friend first. You know, I always known her, but she was you know, her stepmom, and my grandmother hung out, and she was always around, so they were friends, you know, hanging out and having a good time, you know, and so it was easy, you know, because I was already knew the families, you know, so we basically, but yeah, that was and then the other thing is, you know, the family became blended, you know, my kids and her kids, and so we kind of, you know, and then it got blended, and then it became our kids, you know. You know, my children, the kids have taught me how to be a father, you know. It's you know, living and you know, not understanding different things, you know, how a young girl grows up, you know, and different emotions they go through, you know, and you know, as far as my son, I could deal with him, you know, because I already knew, you know, I could kind of relate to him, but you know, so and that's the other thing, you know, you come into, you know, a family. The police officer, not everybody understands, you know, and even you know, other parts of her family, you know, they just, you know, you sure you want to go out with a cop, you know, you sure you want to cop around your kids, you know, all that stuff, you know, it just, and that's just a perception that was going on, you know, and but there was, all in all, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. You know, my family is wonderful. You know, I would stop everything, every moment, everything I do is usually related to someone in my family. You know, if I'm, I breathe for them, and that's all I want. You know,
I've always seen that. Like again about you, like I feel the trust was always there. I always knew you were one of us, and you know, in not, you know, and just helping, being a helpful person and leading by example. Like we knew, you know, I knew when I was doing wrong. We're not dumb, you know. Even when there was a decision that I would make, and I'd see you, and I always, you know, I was just, it was things that I was doing. It was the environment. It was things that I was allowing. I mean, I was making a decision. It wasn't like somebody forced me to. But you know, with that being said, I also knew about you being a great family man, and always putting your family first.
And you mentioned about mentioned about, those are decisions you made, and but even those decisions, right? Good,
Mhm.
bad, and ugly.
Yes, sir.
They're uh they're making you who you are right now.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you want to, or people would want you to filter through, but you shouldn't filter, because everything that someone's getting right now from you
Mhm.
is got a lot to do with things that happened in the past
Oh
and
yeah. Cool.
decisions that you made. So, I always tell everybody that, whether you have a backpack full of stuff or you have a dump truck full of stuff, just keep it. You gotta. It's all making you the person you are. It's all part of the ingredients of Josh.
It is.
And when you look at people, you're smiling. They're smiling back. You're saying, "Well, you know what? This is me. This is what I bring to the table." Um, and the reason why I relate to you this particular way is because of the way I lived my life.
Yep.
And so, no, you stay exactly who you are because, from the pimp daddy machine you had to, to
Good on Michelle. Always like,
yeah, and to being the great uncle you was and being the
yeah.
great brother and son that it's no matter what, you definitely um helped and assisted people in their lives just by being who you are. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Appreciate it. And I want to continue to do that. And like I said, as far as and like that means a lot to me coming from you too, especially. And because sometimes, I mean, you know how it is. You get people see things in you sometimes and they don't really know you, and or they don't try to know where you're at now. They so focus on like your past and where you was, and
Hmm.
it's crazy because to this day, I still when I see people, and we end up, the conversation ends, or maybe it's just a quick talk in a passing in the neighborhood somewhere, or at an event. Hey, how you doing? You staying out of trouble? I'm like, man, I'm 46 years old, man. Why is that still like an outro? You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, out of trouble. I'm like,
Yeah.
like, man, I probably wouldn't be here if I was still doing the things that I was doing.
Yeah.
You know, I would have been one of the funerals that you've gone to, or
Hmm.
just out of sight, out of mind because I'm incarcerated or something. It's
Yeah.
it's funny, man, and it's crazy. I just, when I'm back home, because of that's why I really want to keep doing and I not really want to. I love where I'm at in life, and I love the Lord and what He's done with my life and I have no idea what He's going to continue to do, but I know
Hmm.
that He's always going to have my best interests, and He's going to use me the way He needs me to be used, and I can trust Him for that.
True.
So I know that my life's in His hands. I'm asking and begging and praying and for discernment, and just to be guided in that way, and whatever He puts on my plate, I'm gonna eat off it. I'm gonna distribute whatever I need to into my community or an outlet like this, and be able to help anybody from anywhere in any state or any part of the world. But if need be, but it's really it's really something like you just got. I want to live by example. I don't
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
be the 9 to 5 guy and go on with my life. And that's nothing against anybody else. We all have a purpose and we all have something that we need to be doing on this earth by giving back. And people look at it as taking time out of their day. They look at it as, you know, there's money coming out of their pocket. It's always about me, 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 me. But what people do not get is within all of that selfishness, if we could just remove that and then look at it as, just imagine if we were all given, then we
Hmm.
would all have.
Yeah. Yep.
There'd be always something coming my way if I was always giving, if we were all giving forward, paying forward, like
Hmm.
what you did. You paid forward, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pay forward, and
Yeah. it just makes me feel good. I mean, I don't. It
It is.
giving to someone else is it makes me feel good compared to getting something from someone else.
Mhm.
I know I feel so much better giving to someone, whether it's
Sure.
something physical or whether it's some
Mhm.
advice, but just makes me feel so much better.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Um, I wanted to ask you this one last question.
Mhm.
So I thought about it too, and but I just know it's much bigger than you just being, like you would have had more control. And a name that I attached to the question was what really made sense for me, and just you having more control over a situation, or making a larger impact. So if you could have became chief of your department, and they gave you what I call Belichick control.
Mhm.
What do you think you could change, and how could you make things better on a larger scale, opposed to not that you didn't, because you changed and impacted probably thousands, I would say, and
Mhm.
I'm putting a low number on it, of lives. But I'm saying, if you could have something instilled, and that be the foundation of like the police department, and you being the chief and being given that Belichick control.
I um I would kind of try to um demonstrate, I got to practice what I preach, right? So
Yes.
and practicing what I did is getting involved with the community, from the poorest community to the richest community in the city. I would want to have that community relationship with them and have more people get involved with the community things. Community policing was something that was real special to me, and that would have been something that I really would have focused on.
Mhm.
Um, the and you talked about taking on or getting officers to have degrees in psychology and all that stuff, and that would I would like to have a more educated police force,
Yes.
and for whether it's human services or try to get them to have that understanding.
Mhm.
The But I would have a mixture of them. Like some people are just not made for school, right? So you try to get them to do some other things. Uh, there's whether it's a guy or girl that comes on and they were athlete, or now you want to get them to kind of go ahead and coach, get
Mhm.
more involved with kids, do things like that. One of the most greatest things in the world is the PAL, where they're setting up boxing programs throughout different cities and towns, like Fall River does,
All right. You said
and
it's called the PAL.
PAL, PAL, and it's the Police
PAL.
Association, and um,
Is that a,
different.
is that the website? Is that PAL.com?
Yeah, it'd just be PAL. You could put .com or .org,
All right.
and it's guys like Bucky Vincent and Manny Burgo and Libby Medeiros that was in Fall River.
Familiar
They were
name.
always involved in that. And they were having amateur boxings like Golden Gloves and all that. And the police would be involved in that. And so that would be something that I would get two more kind of people, more police officers being liaisons for different things.
All right.
Now it would I mean, it would have been easier back then, but now it's very hard because
Mhm.
let's just face it, everybody's trying to find a new employee. Nobody wants to work, and nobody wants to work in this particular field.
Mhm.
So it's very hard, and the numbers are low across the board. From every level of law enforcement. Um,
Is
and
that state to state, or is that
that's a countrywide,
wow?
and so the numbers are low everywhere. From town to city to state to federal. agencies, the numbers are real low.
Mm.
And that's ever since all these different situations that have come across,
Yeah,
from,
of course.
and so people just don't want to do it. But that's one thing I would do, is have a more community based police department if I was chief.
Mm.
Um, and
Yeah.
that would be something that I would do, would have done. And I think, and even promotions, I would have tried to got more people to try to get promoted, after so many years. Too many people don't want to be supervisors, but they're very qualified and very needed to be a supervisor. You could have the most experienced people on the street, but they're not supervising others. They're just kind of doing their own thing. And so sometimes it would, getting the right people promoted would be important, um, and but community, that means a lot to me, and that would be something that I would have changed, if I was chief. But I tried to get promoted 2 times, and I didn't do too good. Uh,
No,
no, that test was murder, man. That stuff is. Woo. I
it's
mean, you
pretty
gotta you
bad.
gotta you gotta study for a year. You know, you gotta study for a year straight, because they really have. There's a lot of material, and so when you see men and women that are supervisors, they put
Mhm.
in a lot of work.
All
They
right.
put in a lot of work. There's a few of them that really didn't, you know,
Hmm.
but that's just a handful, But there's
Yeah.
anyone you see that's a supervisor, you gotta kind of tip your hat to them, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I bet. Yeah. I'm a little surprised because, I mean, not really surprised, but you would think or would hope they would make that a little bit easier, not make it
Yeah.
so challenging. Like you're not trying to. I mean, I can imagine. I mean, but you know how it is sometimes. It's just certain tests and like, why is this in there? Why are we going to this extreme?
Hmm.
And you can be so qualified, but because of this part of a test that you failed, you didn't actually get that. You aren't granted that position, to move up, or granted that opportunity to move up to that position.
See, what happens is municipalities, they give exams, that are generated through the state, right?
Hmm.
And every exam they give, you got to pay money for that.
Hmm.
And so it's economics. They just, every time there's in a test, there's hundreds of people that want to that want to take the test. They got to pay for it.
Hmm.
Um, and that's money that's generated not for the city or town, but it's generated for the state.
Yes.
Um, and if they did it like the military, it'd be different. You would
Hmm.
have supervisors that would to oversee their group, and say, well, that's the person who want to be the next supervisor. Let's let's make that happen, and they groom you for it,
Yep.
Um, but no, it's definitely, it's a tough job, and you got to have stamina. There's no such thing as, hey, let me go play around and be a cop for a couple
Yeah.
of years.
It's not.
No,
It's
it's
not.
not.
We joke around years ago, but you have no idea.
Hmm.
No idea. That's what I was saying about the mental health aspect of it and getting help for yourself as well, not just getting a degree to go into the field, but also getting therapy for yourself is imperative in my opinion as well. Because on the flip side, police officer might be bringing his stress to the job,
Hmm.
taking the stress from the job home, and
Yeah.
how is that to his family if he doesn't know how to address it and control it.
Yeah, and that's one thing I like about, the towns and cities around here, is that they all have that. They have the peer groups. They have uh, social services that you
Mhm.
can, uh, confidentially go to, and no one knowing your business other than you and the counselor. So that's all free. It don't cost you anything. So
yes, sir.
it's definitely there, and we see cases where men and women on the job might get dependent on something, alcohol, drugs, but at least they can go to those things and say, hey, I need some help, and then get some help, and then some people are too prideful, they don't want to go to those situations. They don't want to go sit on a couch and tell their story, to anybody. And then that's when they bring it home, like you talked about. And then it becomes a hot a fiery situation, and that's not good. It's not good.
Definitely not. Definitely not. I know I was gonna ask you one last question, but I want to add one more. While we're at it, is if you was going to speak, if a young man asked you, hey, Charlie, I'm thinking about becoming a police officer. What's like a small piece of advice that you would give to him before he even goes into boot camp and gets ready?
I would tell them just, the first thing is, get in shape, and also to, when you do graduate and you go through this, when you first begin, they're trying to weed you out. They the people that don't belong there are going to be the people that walk out in the first 2 weeks of the academy. Those are the people that they're just trying to weed you out. And if you're not fit for the job because someone's yelling at you, what are you going to do when someone's calling you the N-word on the street? What are you going to do when someone's calling you, a different word, they're talking about your white race or your Spanish race or whatever what are you going to do? Are you going to blow up? Are you going to go, you know what? This is just a cop that's just being Major Pain, as that movie there, he's just in your ear trying to get you to see if he can push your buttons, and then they push your buttons and they say, well, he wasn't meant for police work. She wasn't meant for police work. So let me get off that. So the one thing I would tell her was to get in shape. And then when you get on the job, invest money. $50 a week, put it away. Put it in, put it in an account, whether it's mutual funds, stocks, whatever, a retirement plan, $50 and just leave it there, because the pension is not enough. And so when you put that money away, put it away, by the time you get done with your career, you're walking out with pretty close to $1 million, and at least that would be something that can supplement your pension.
Absolutely.
Investment is so important, especially where
it is, man.
Where can you get a job with a high school diploma and you're making pretty close to six figures because you have an abundance of hours to work. You're working a double shift. You're working a police detail. So what are you going to do with all that money? You go buy a car that you're paying off or trying to pay, invest that money, $50. You go to, you go out to a bar or you sit with friends and, you're spending $50 to $100 on rounds of beer or shots or whatever it is. You know what? Take some of that money and just put it away and invest so you can live a happier life instead of being like me and, working a job when I should just be collecting my pension.
Yes, I agree. Times are different for sure. Yeah. And I appreciate. Yeah, I mean, I know that's some very helpful information that can be used and giving some insight, to this whole, throughout this whole podcast, as far as what it looks like to lead, why you did, and I appreciate you sharing everything. Let me I know you said you have a podcast now, and I do know it. I just wanted to be able to share it on here, and I also put it in the notes with what places on the social media platforms could you be reached at?
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, the Really Charlie channel. It's a Really Charlie podcast, and that is on WNB One Radio, which is my sweatshirt right there.
Oh yeah, I thought that's what I saw in there. That brings me back. Yep.
So that's internet radio, and it's right downtown New Bedford, 262 Union Street. Brand new building. Black and Latino owned, the radio station,
Right.
and it's the first in the city. So, and we're doing amazing things, from podcasting to music,
Awesome.
from hip hop music to R&B music, which I play on Tuesdays, 6 to 9. About it. Mainly, it's my podcast on Tuesday.
On Tuesdays, all right.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I put all that in the notes.
True. And
yeah,
I'm actually doing a show on Wednesdays for the dangers of fentanyl. I do that with Paula Young, and I do that from home, and just talk about the dangers of opioids and how it's crazy, and 300 people a day are dying over these overdoses and or poisonings. People not even knowing that the pills are being laced with fentanyl, and doesn't take long. You die within 3 minutes, less than that, really. So, no, feel free to let me know when the podcast is done, so I can share it on my page. I definitely want to promote you and your great thing you're doing.
Appreciate it.
Keep it up. I actually use occasionally, it's called matchfinder.fm, and it puts you with guests to be on your podcast.
Oh, really?
And it's free, and
what's it called again? You said
Matchfinder. Yep.
It's not a dating site right now.
No, it's not.
Hey, guys, like, wait, I don't want to do those anyway. But I was just.
Yeah, it's matchfinder.fm.
.fm.
The craziest thing is, I said the same thing. I said, "What's it? A dating site?" But it definitely matches you up with guests that you're particularly looking for, and they'll send you messages and say, "Hey, I'd like to come on your show," and you just
Looking forward to that. I'm gonna hop on that as soon as we finalize this.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it, brother.
All right, man. Good job, and
out of your day and being available as you always are. I don't want to take advantage, but when I reached out to you, I said, I know this brother's gonna give me some of his time. I wanted to make it as convenient as possible. I know you have a full family. I know you're not just a husband and a brother and a friend, but you're also a papa.
Yeah, love it.
And everything else. So
I love it. It's the best thing in the world, man.
I can imagine. I know it is. I always get excited, to just hear about how you're doing and what's going on back home, and it's great that you still stay in touch with everybody and try to do the best you can. But at the same time, like you said, you're not a police officer anymore. It comes a time where you gotta hang the cuffs up, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's
that's my biggest problem. I don't know how to say no.
Yeah.
But it's a good problem.
Yeah, it is.
But call me anytime. Text me, whatever you have to, and keep doing this thing. StreamYard is awesome.
Yeah, it is. I like it a lot. What I'm gonna do now, I kind of paused right before just now, and then I'm gonna edit. I'm gonna end it at that point so we can just talk for however long it matter. But I thought that with this StreamYard, I would have to stop at a certain point, but it kept going. So I kept talking because what I was gonna do is when we got to what I thought was only what we had available, as far as the length of the podcast, I thought it was gonna stop at an hour, and it kept going.
Yeah.
Went out at an hour and a half exactly. So and it's still going. Like I said, so I don't know. What do you know about that? Because I saw something on that. That's why I brought it up.